So Clemson versus Florida State, number 4 team in the country, in Death Valley tomorrow at noon. I'm pretty angry about the noon kickoff. It's just unbelievable the ACC decides to make Clemson Florida State a nooner, probably the biggest game in the ACC the entire year, and we get the noon slot. Pretty crazy, but I don't really want to go into a tangent about that. I just want to strictly talk about this game. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have told you Florida State is going to come into Clemson and probably beat us by 21 or more. Honestly, FSU looked like they were headed to the playoffs with a legit shot at winning a national title. Meanwhile, Clemson, we honestly looked like we're probably going to struggle to finish 6-6. I was really questioning whether we were going to make a bowl game. You know, I was up front. I was one of those voices in Tiger Nation that was highly critical of the coaching staff, highly critical of the players. Really wanted to see a lot of changes going on. And though I still do, I do feel a little bit better heading into this game because things have changed. FSU obviously struggled on the road last week against Boston College, and Clemson's offense has had 2 little tune-up games in consecutive weeks after that Duke debacle. I was, like a lot of Clemson fans, ready to write Cade off, especially after those first 6 quarters of the season. The game against Duke that he had, the first 2 quarters against Charleston Southern, I mean, he just looked awful. But the last 6 quarters have given us at least some reason to be optimistic heading into this game. Now, in my opinion, this is the most important Clemson game, regular season Clemson game, since at least 2015 against FSU. The parallels are just very similar with each other. FSU, go back in that time, they had just won a national championship in 2013. The following year, they go to the playoffs, the first playoffs in college football, and they get embarrassed in the semifinals against Oregon. And then they rolled into Death Valley as an unranked team in 2015. So the trajectory for their program was pretty clear. They were clearly regressing, and they were regressing in a hurry. They were at the top, and now they were struggling. Meanwhile, Clemson was clearly on the rise at that time period. You know, we had just ended our long losing streak to South Carolina the previous year. We had 4 consecutive double-digit win seasons. We had a Heisman caliber quarterback and a top 10 defense. I mean, we looked like a team that was going to go to the playoffs and compete for a national title, but FSU stood in our way. You know, they had dominated the ACC for several years in a row at that point. They were sort of that last demon that we needed to slay, so to speak. And fortunately for us, we were able to get over that hump. And then we go on a historic run. You know, we took total control of the ACC. We won a couple of national titles along the way. Fast forward to now, FSU is clearly a team on the rise. They won 10 games last year. They excel at utilizing the transfer portal. And they look like a team that's destined for the playoffs. Meanwhile, Clemson, it's crystal clear that we are regressing. And so the roles are sort of reversed from 2015 to today. This game is important to me because it has ramifications for years to come. Right now, FSU has a top 10 recruiting class. Clemson does not. I just mentioned FSU utilizes the transfer portal. Clemson still doesn't. Clemson used to have this overwhelming talent advantage against everyone that we played against, including FSU, but that obviously is not true anymore. FSU has either caught up to us or they've already surpassed us, and they look like they're poised to surpass us pretty significantly in overall roster talent for years to come. They're recruiting better than us, and they're utilizing the portal better than us. And so FSU comes in Death Valley and wins this game. I think they control the ACC for years to come. I don't think we're going to tank like their program did, and I don't think that they're going to go on this historic run like we did, but I do think they are going to take over the ACC. They're going to be the best program. They're going to be signing the better recruiting classes. They're going to go into the portal and fill holes. And so it's just hard for me to imagine that Clemson can overcome this significant gap in roster talent. And so I think this game super important for years to come. Now, given that there's so much at stake in this game, in my opinion, I do think there are 4 keys to victory for Clemson. And number 1 is going to be obvious. I mean, turnovers have to be it. They cost us the game against Duke, clearly turning the ball over twice inside the 5-yard line. A third turnover. I think we had 4 turnovers in that game. Obviously, you look at the first half of the Charleston Southern game, Cade throws one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in my life. And that game was 21-17 at the half against a terrible, terrible football team. And Cade has made truly terrible decisions this year, ones that make you question whether he's going to be another 5-star bust. But to his credit, he's looked a lot better the last 6 quarters, albeit against weaker opponents. Personally, I think Cade is going to play a good game tomorrow, and I think he's going to put us in a chance to win the game. Number 2, our offensive tackles versus their defensive ends. Jared Verse and Patrick Payton are legit. I mean, Verse is going to be a top 10 pick. Payton, if you don't know who he is, this kid's got crazy athleticism for defensive end. He's still a young player, but if he puts it all together, his potential is pretty high. They're the best defensive duo we'll face all season, hands down, no doubt about it. Meanwhile, Clemson's offensive line hasn't been great. It never really is, but where we've struggled the most is at offensive tackle. Colin Sadler and Tristan Lee have both split time at left tackle. I don't think either one of them are that exceptional. Both of them, in my opinion, are severely overmatched against Verse. I would expect Garrett Riley is going to have a lot of chipping with tight ends and running backs to help them out. We're just going to have to do a lot to help out our left tackles against arguably one of the best defensive players in the entire country. And so that means the game's probably going to be won on the other side, which is Blake Miller versus Patrick Payton. Blake Miller was a freshman All-American. I expected him to come in and be probably our best offensive lineman this year, but he honestly hasn't played that well. We really need Blake Miller to be that guy he was last year, be better than what he was last year. He has to play his best game of his career, in my opinion. Jared Verse is going to make plays. There's no doubt about it. He's going to be disruptive. But if Blake Miller can hold up against Patrick Payton, I think Clemson has a legitimate chance to move the ball and score some points. Number 3, our defensive ends have to find a way to get Jordan Travis to the ground. It's not enough to get pressure. We've got to sack him. Xavier Thomas, I had high hopes for him. He's been fairly underwhelming so far this season, but I have actually seen flashes. The explosiveness off the ball is elite. I hope he can put it all together. We desperately need him to be disruptive this week. We need a multi-sack game out of XT. We got to have it out of him. 5-star, 6-year guy. He's been banged up. He's finally healthy. He's got to put it all together this week. Going to our other starting defenseman, Justin Maskell. He's about as average as you can be. I don't really expect much out of him. I don't anticipate him having a big game. I don't think he's going to be very impactful. We can't really expect that out of him. We know who he is, which means Clemson's going to need freshman TJ Parker to have a huge, huge game. And we've all seen how great this kid is and how great he's going to be in the future. Unbelievably bright future ahead of him, but we really need him to be impactful tomorrow. This is going to be his toughest challenge, the best offensive line we've seen all season, but I see no reason why he can't have another exceptional game. So XT, TJ Parker, if they can be disruptive, get pressure on Jordan Travis, and bring him down for sacks, Clemson has a chance. And with that said, Jordan Travis is an elite athlete. And if our defensive ends are getting pressure on him, he can step up and run the ball. That means Rook, Tyler Davis, Peter Woods, they've got to maintain their rush lanes. I mean, this kid can just tuck it and get a first down easily for us, kills an entire defense. 3rd and 15 can be first down because of his legs. Our defensive tackles cannot get out of position with his legs. He will kill us with them. So if our defensive ends get pressure, we'll lead our defensive tackles stay in their rush lanes. Now, number 4, final point, Clemson's safeties have to be great. They just have to be. Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, 2 of the best wide receivers, one of the best duos in the entire country. However, I do think Clemson's corners are going to match up pretty well against them. I'm really high on Nate Wiggins. I think this kid has future first-round potential. So I think he can hold up his own against either one of them. Sheridan Jones, 5th-year guy, really steady. He's not this exceptionally great player, but I think he's good. He looks like a guy that's probably going to find his way onto an NFL roster next year. He has to have a big game. And then Jaden Lucas, I think we're all seeing his true potential, the guy he was coming out of high school, highly rated, borderline 4-star on some services. He's starting to live up to that hype he was coming out of high school. And so, I think the size, athleticism we have at corner, Nate Wiggins is 6'2", Jaden Lucas is 6'2". I think they match up well against FSU's outside wide receivers, and both of them are great. And we need our corners to step up, and honestly, I think they will. So that means our safeties have to be just as good. They're going to be matched up against FSU's tight ends, slot wide receivers all night, and they are good at those positions. Jaheim Bell's a good tight end. They have good slot receivers. They're athletic. We're really going to need Jalen Phillips, 5th-year guy, to have a big game. RJ Mickens in his 4th year. Both of them 2 veterans, 9 years combined between them. I mean, they have to play like veterans. I'm not too high on them. I don't think they're the greatest players in the world, They're okay. I don't really think they have NFL futures, but we need them to be big, right? You know, our safeties cannot blow any coverages. Jordan Travis is too good for that, and they're definitely going to tackle well in space, which is something we have struggled with. But if we do that, if our safeties stick to their zones, tackle in space, I think we have a chance. With that said, my prediction for the game, I think FSU is going to score a late touchdown, but I think they're going to fail on a 2-point conversion. So I think Clemson's going to win. My pick is 28-26. Why? Because, well, you know, in the day, Clemson runs the ACC. This is our league. FSU struggled against Boston College in front of, 30,000 fans, if I'm being generous. How do you think they're going to do in front of 80,000? You know, Death Valley is going to be electric, albeit at noon. I do think Cade is going to have a clean game. I'm predicting 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, over 250 passing yards. Shipley has killed FSU the previous 2 weeks. I think he's going to have another big game, 100 yards, touchdown. I think Monfort will add in a touchdown as well. I think Clemson's defense is going to get a key big turnover and make that one final stand at the goal line, and the narrative around this program will change. Clemson will go on to win the ACC this year and have a potential at making the playoffs. That's my prediction. Go Tigers.